On his first day as a janitor at the school, he saw something that would change his life forever. On the blackboard was an advanced MIT Fourier equation, one that only a handful of people in the world could solve. But the janitor didn't even hesitate. He casually solved the professor's puzzle like it was nothing. The professor was stunned, eager to find out who the mystery genius was. He held a special class just about that problem. He didn't expect a packed room. Everyone was curious to see who had cracked it, but the students just looked around at each other. No one admitted to being the solver. The professor was both disappointed and intrigued, so he put out a challenge on the blackboard, promising that whoever could solve it would fast-track their way to the top. But no one expected the person who would solve it to be a janitor. The janitor took one look at the equation and couldn't help but pick up the chalk. But the professor saw him and thought he was just messing around. He was ready to drag the kid into his office. The janitor took off, leaving only a polite question behind. What shocked the professor even more was that the right answer showed up on the board again. It wasn't a student. It was that same janitor. He solved 2 years' worth of research in just a few minutes. Confused and curious, the professor went looking for him, but Will had already quit his job. When he finally tracked Will down, the kid was in court, facing serious charges. But Will didn't flinch. He started quoting laws like a seasoned attorney, even better than the lawyer standing next to him. He'd memorized the entire Constitution years ago. The judge and the other lawyer were both speechless. Then the judge read through Will's long rap sheet. May 1993, assault with intent. June, grand theft. September, impersonating a police officer. Charge after charge. But somehow, he'd always found legal loopholes and walked free. The professor was shocked, but Will's backstory made it all make sense. He was an orphan, abused in foster care, which shaped his tough, rebellious personality. One time, when he saw the guys who used to bully him, he walked straight up and beat them. Fighting came easy for him, but this time, he even hit a cop. The judge sympathized with his past, but couldn't overlook the assault. If he couldn't come up with $50,000 for bail, he'd be sent to jail. Just when it seemed like no one would help him, the professor showed up, the one person who could change his life. He didn't care what Will had done. Instead, he gave him 2 conditions. First, he had to study math with him once a week. Second, he had to see a therapist every week. If Will agreed, the professor would pay his $50,000 bail and get him out. Will didn't like it, but he didn't have a choice. Eventually, he nodded and agreed. From that point on, Will wasn't just a street-smart punk anymore. He became the right-hand man of a world-renowned college professor.